we have a lot of things to discuss, but first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got started?
Sure, and thank you very much for inviting me, and congratulations for the progress and success of Product School. So I've always been a web design and web development freak. My career started, I think I would say during the university in the early 90s, because I went to school here in the U.S. I'm from Madrid, Spain originally, but I went to school here at San Jose State, so very close by where I live today. And those were the years of the World Wide Web, and the first websites were built for companies, right? So I went back to Spain in '96 after I graduated, and I immediately worked in interactive agency consultancy that was building the first websites for Spanish companies, the company called Icon Media Lab. And that's where I kind of got started with this whole web design and development and user experience and later user research. What happened was that we were building websites without any regard to the end user. It was mostly about pleasing the executives and the designers or the developers. Obviously, this was a long time ago. And I always thought that usability and ease of use was very important for those websites. And so I started my own, I co-founded my own consultancy dedicated to user research and usability testing to help companies get it right, be more user focused. And that was called Xperience Consulting. And then a few years later, so we spent all day at a physical lab, where we were testing. We were inviting the end user to come and try to use a website. We would record the whole thing and take notes and ask questions, what you do in the typical usability test in a usability lab. But over time, we found that it was not very scalable. It was tough. It was expensive. It was limited to specific geographic locations. And so we felt, the three co-founders felt very passionate about what we were doing, and we wanted to take it to the next level and make it scalable. And so UserZoom was born out of that. We basically wanted to use software and the internet and build a SaaS company that would allow companies to scale their user research. And everything was done remotely online. And this was about 12 years ago. So here we are today, and everyone cares about the quality of the user experience. And they should care, as we'll talk today, about user research in order to deliver killer products.
Can you give me an idea of the scale of your company today?
Yeah, the company is about 250 employees. We're targeting about 60 million in bookings, 50 million ARR, and growing at quite fast, between 40 to 50%.
That's pretty incredible. And one of the things that I noticed, and a lot of successful products actually start as a service, very, very small, doing things that don't scale, and then eventually turned into, more scalable products. Like you are a living example of that.
Yeah, we also started with some services. In fact, the consultancy, the experience that we got through the consulting years helped us. And so in the initial years, in order to fund the business, we delivered a lot of services. And then a couple of years later, we launched the self-service option, the so-called SaaS subscription model. And that's where we are today.
One of the things that a lot of people say in product world is that you have to fall in love with the problem and not with the solution. I guess this is similar in the user research world as well. Like in your particular case, what are those problems that you are most passionate about?
Well, first, it's very difficult to deliver great digital experiences. We focus mostly on digital products, right? So the user research and the testing that you can do is on digital products. And, the fact is that we think every company is a digital experience company today. And with COVID-19, this vision is actually being accelerated. So if you're going to be competitive, if you're going to beat your competition, you really need to deliver great experiences. Now, that's easier said than done, as I'm sure you and all your audiences know, right? It's very difficult. And so one of the things you can do is understand the problem and understand the audience, the target audience, truly understand it. And that's where user research can really help. Now, user research is quite broad. It's all about understanding who is the end user, whether it's a customer or a user. And you can do multiple types of projects or studies and use multiple different methodologies, qualitative, quantitative, usability testing, like I was just saying earlier, or surveys or analytics. There's multiple types of intelligence that you can use to gather insights. And that's what you want to do when you discuss falling in love with the problem. It's really about understanding the problem and the needs in order to design the best experience. And so with UserZoom, what we've tried to do is make user experience research scalable, because otherwise it's difficult to get it done, especially in the agile development days that we live in.
Mm-hmm. And I'm also thinking that product has evolved a lot, and not all the companies have the resources to invest in a fully dedicated user research team. So sometimes those responsibilities fall on the PM's shoulders. So I want to explore that with you a little bit more. What are some of those myths and misconceptions that you've seen in the product management world?
Well, so I think more than a myth, I just feel like the role of product management is changing and has been changing in the last few years. I kind of feel like design and UX design is a huge part of the role. I think it used to be when I was, earlier in my career, product managers tended to be a lot more business focused, right? Today, I feel like you need to be a lot more design focused, because at the end of the day, the experience, the quality of the experience the end user is going to have is going to be what makes or breaks the success of the product. So I feel like one of the myths, I don't know if it's a myth really, but there's this notion that product managers, should be or are business people or tech people. But I feel like they need to be design experts as well. That's one of the highlights that I think I would mention to answer that question.
I agree with you. I'm a big advocate for that. I've seen the trend of engineers becoming product managers, business people becoming product managers, and I believe that we need more designers or people who care about the end-to-end experience. Because at the end of the day, especially as you grow in your career, you're not going to be in the weeds like coding or working that much with engineers. You are going to spend a lot of your time interacting with users. And there's also a lot of technology out there that is enabling non-engineers build pretty sophisticated things without a single line of code.
That's right. That's right. And, there's that, and there is the power that has the power the end consumer has today, thanks to the accessibility of information, and multiple apps that you can use and all of that. Users are not easy to please these days. So I think you have to really focus on UX design, and as McKinsey says, it's actually impacting the bottom line. It's actually impacting the return on investment. So there's financial success or financial rewards if you develop or if you design great experiences. So the product managers need to be definitely very focused and aware of what needs to be done to deliver great design.
I also want to learn a little bit more about your experience working with companies that are starting, or even in your own experience when you were building UserZoom. At the very beginning, most of the startups, your company is almost your product. And obviously, as it grows, there is much more than that. So we talk about this concept of the product CEO, or the CEO owning the product experience, at least in the early days. So what would you say is this overlaps in skills between CEOs and product managers?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, they both share the concept of leadership, right? When I think about a PM, I think about a small CEO of a product, or maybe a large product. Obviously small when it's starting up, but at the end of the day, it's all about leading, motivating, inspiring, partnering. It takes a village, right? A product manager is going to deal with multiple personalities and egos and the skills, and from design to development to marketing, product marketing, etc. So I think there's a lot of common ground. You need, as a product manager, you should set a vision or a North Star for the product. Something that, again, inspires the team to go build it and deliver it and manage it. The strategy of how to get there. And then, again, back to the user research, we made the mistake in UserZoom originally, of not really paying that much attention to the audience. We found out a little bit later, not that long, it didn't take us that long, which is good, that we figured out who was the target audience for this product. We ended up saying the enterprise, the user experience researcher within the enterprise is going to be our target audience. So I think as a product manager, you also need to pay attention to the target audience, and again, use user research to dedicate to really figure that out. And then once again, CEOs, PMs, you're going to have people that you hire to build the company or the product, and then you want to trust them. You want to trust and verify. You want to test, measure, and monitor the progress of the product. And a lot of that is the same when you're a CEO of a company that is either small or big.
You've used the word learning a lot, and I love it. I'm a huge advocate for lifelong learning. I believe we shouldn't stop when you just graduate, and especially in companies. Imagine, like, you started as a CEO, just yourself and your co-founders, you scale this business tremendously, and I'm sure you also had to learn to become that leader for your company. So I'm curious to know what are those things that you had to learn, and how do you reserve time for it?
Well, one of the things that I mention quite often when I tell our story, it's 250 people. It's not that large of a business, but it's been tough to get there, and to grow. And what I can say is that when you're a founder or an entrepreneur, and you're between, let's say, 0 to 20 or 30 million, your role is completely different than when you're past a certain stage or a certain phase of the business. I believe that I've gone from being an entrepreneur to being more of a CEO. When you're an entrepreneur, you're a CEO maybe, or COO, or whatever your role is. But once you get going and you get to a certain stage, you need to learn how to become a leader and a CEO. I've been fortunate to have great people beside me, from our own investor that has trusted in us and me and the company, and has helped me hire people that are more experienced than me. And so I learn a lot from them every single day. And then the other thing that I'm fortunate about is that because I've hired well and I've delegated, and the great people that you hire are able to do things on their own, you can dedicate more specific time to learning and to inspire yourself and to think, which is something that is very hard to do at the beginning. But if you can spend time reading and thinking and looking at trends, and even like I'm doing, not just books and blogs and audio books or podcasts and things like that, but also courses. You have so many courses, like I'm trying to learn more about finance, right now, because finance is becoming more and more important. Um, but I think that's the if you can grow the business and understand that it's not all about you. It's about hiring the best people, delegating, getting them motivated. That's the true meaning of success, when you can get others to go in the same direction and not have to rely on you. The best thing you can do is to become dispensable, right? So that if something happened to you, they can carry on, and then you can dedicate your time to understand to understand where you are at, and your strengths and your weaknesses, and certainly continue learning. For me, it's every single day. UserZoom has been like a university, like the best MBA possible. Um, so you know that I'm certainly learning every day.
I absolutely resonate with that. I always say that this is the best street MBA because there's so many things that get thrown your way that you can't even expect. And I think that having that mindset to always be learning, and also having the humility to be able to delegate, and the talent to bring people who are honestly better at certain things, makes you an even better leader. So in your case, like, we always talk about doing things that don't scale here in Silicon Valley, especially when business gets started. We say, okay, you have to test a lot of things. You have to talk to customers. You have to do something, even if it's not going to become huge yet. Is there anything in particular that you're still doing as a CEO that you think that it's so core to the business that it's good for you to continue doing?
Yeah, certainly. In that change that I was talking about a little earlier, the shift of my role, the different tasks. I used to do everything, and that doesn't scale. And so, um, basically, I think one thing that you have to do is to talk to, um, in my case, I'm talking to four major, you know, constituents, right? I talked to customers, especially now with Zoom. It's actually quite easy. So I try to talk to about 3 to 4 customers a week. And it doesn't matter how big they are. Sometimes smaller ones, smaller deals are also very important, to learn. The second one is certainly the employees. And I would actually say that number one is the employees, especially these days. Customers is second. And then I talk to analysts and people in the marketplace that are influencers, people that run conferences like yourself, right? And then last, well, there's two more actually. So one would be the analysts. I work with Gartner and Forrester, and it's a two-way street here. I try to get trends and information from intelligence from them and from their papers, but I also tell them about what's going on in our industry, because our industry is fairly new. And then the last one is investors. As a CEO, you should always be talking to potential investors, even if you're not raising. You're having conversations with people out there. Oh, I forgot one more. Sorry, I guess there's six, which is partners. There's always companies that you want to partner with, that you're working with, and you want to be. So the partners, I may not talk that much, but certainly with employees, customers, investors, and analysts. I spend, I don't know exactly right now, but probably somewhere between 50 to 60% of my time.
Mm-hmm. That's a good benchmark, especially for product CEOs who maybe haven't graduated yet to that phase where they can delegate some parts of the day-to-day. I think it's refreshing to hear that it is critical, but at the same time, there's a lot of other things that CEOs need to do to bring those type of insights to the company and to the market. So we talked about delegating and bringing smart people to help you grow the business. When it comes to product, obviously, I'm sure you have strong opinions. It's your baby. So how do you balance the influence between, your own desires for what you want your company or your baby to be, and what those product leaders in your company also want to do with it?
It's tough. I can't lie. You're right. I have my strong opinions, and entrepreneurs, by the way, is the way you are, right? You're supposed to know, and you're dedicating your life and soul, and so it's tough. But it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Uh, you're gonna need you're gonna need to change and put your ego aside in order to scale. There's gonna be a point where it's much better if you can hire somebody that you can trust, that you can inspire, and then let her or him take care of business, and you become a partner and influencer versus the you know doer or sole contributor. It's the only way it's going to scale. Now, it's a hard thing to do because there's multiple ways to skin a cat, right? And nobody has a crystal ball. So I think it's kind of like a marriage, or like with your kids. You want to help them see the light and see what should be the right way of doing things, and again, influence and participate. But you have to give up the full control if you're going to scale. And in our case, for instance, we have an SVP of product, we have a CTO, which is my co-founding partner, we have a VP of design, and I have a COO. They all report to. And I certainly influence, I certainly raise my hand, always very respectfully. In my case, I have the experience from all these past years being in this industry. But again, the best way is to let them is to give them the trust. They're going to be a lot more productive, motivated if they feel trusted. You know, and again, you want to make yourself dispensable. That's the ultimate goal. And if you can make them successful, and last but not least, so we're also very focused on insights and data. We try to be data driven at UserZoom. Again, we're a UX research company, so we better, right? We talk about drinking our own champagne. I really believe that for this question that you asked me, Carlos, the user research comes in very handy. Why make the decision based on what I say, or based on my gut feel, or based on my experience? Why not add user research and running a survey or a test so that we can see what the end user, not the product manager, not the designer, not the CEO, but the end user. And user research helps a lot in that sense. It helps create clarity, objectivity. And I can tell you that recently I raised my hand and said, oh my God, there's no way. This feature cannot be this way. No. And the product team came back and said, well, we're not sure. We've been debating it. How about this? Why don't we run a research study, a combination of a qualitative and a quantitative research study? And they did. And it took a month. I wasn't having a lot of fun during that month, I have to admit. It was tough. But they came back, and turns out that I was right. But we didn't change it because I said so. It's because the research suggested that I was right in this case. I would have loved, by the way, to have been proven wrong, and that we went and made the decision based on the results. But that's how user research can really help to de-risk the situation and add objectivity.
And I want to dig a little bit deeper on that, because we've seen more PMs now relying on this type of tools. So even though they are not professional user researchers, I think there's an opportunity for them to be dangerous enough. So what are some of the best practices or common tips that you think would be a good starting point for them?
Well, first of all, let me say I feel passionate and strong about this. So yeah, today tools, including UserZoom, automate research and make the tedious task of running research studies a whole lot easier, scalable, and definitely fast and cost effective, which is very important, right, in Agile. However, it's not that simple. You jump in an interview, like for instance today here we're doing with Zoom or with other products, or if you run a survey or whatever. I feel like it's great to have some experience in user research. You can really bias the data. You can make mistakes. And so I tend to recommend to non-researchers that they learn research. It's not like they have to get a PhD, but there's a lot of tips and best practices out there. If you can bring in a researcher, honestly, if you can bring in a researcher within the design team, it's going to make a huge difference. I personally feel like I would invest more in product design and research before I invest in marketing, because great products sell themselves, and they explode, right, in terms of usage and adoption if they work well. So you don't need marketing. And so yeah, you can certainly use products like UserZoom that may not require a full PhD in user research. And there's a lot of other products out there, of course, we use internally ourselves, but I'd still highly recommend learning about user research and potentially even hire somebody to be part of the team.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good point. And you mentioned that there are also other tools, not just in the user research world, but in general for your product team. So what is some of the tools that your product team uses as part of their stack?
Certainly. Obviously, the combination of UserZoom and Validately, which is the company that we acquired last year and that we are integrating now, that combination allows our product team to do a lot of research. They run, I think, somewhere in the vicinity of 4 to 5, 6 studies a month. So they're trying to basically, support every agile sprint out there. The team is also using, analytics tools like Pendo, the Atlassian products like Jira and Confluence. More on the design side, we have InVision and Sketch, to partner with the designers. And I'm talking mostly about product management right now, not the rest of the product team. Aha, Monday.com for product management and for project management. And then Tableau is also an important one because for data visualization, we're doing a lot of research and there's a lot of data. We need to make sure that there's not too much data, I guess, fatigue. And so Tableau sometimes helps us to also report to myself and the rest of the management team.
And just to wrap it up, so I want to get your thoughts on the future of product management. Where do you think are the biggest opportunities for not just product managers, but in general, people working in product?
I'm going to go back to that design comment earlier because I can just see how powerful a combination for companies out there that are going through digital transformation and are looking for product managers to lead, the development, the design and development and delivery of a product. In this case, I'm thinking mostly digital products, right? But it's very rare to see the combination of business, technology, and design. So I feel like in the future, a lot more attention is going to be placed on the design aspect, the front end. In order to be competitive, you have to have enterprise back end and consumer grade front end, even if you're in B2B, even if for B2B companies, right? Not, of course, consumer B2C companies we kind of take it for granted. But so I would argue that, again, obviously I'm part of this design community, design and research community. I feel like research is part of design. So for a product manager to really understand what it takes to design great experiences, understanding, of design principles and research, and you can combine that with the business aspect and understand how design can actually impact or how it relates to business. The KPIs that you need, for instance, to measure the success of a feature. Is it just analytics? Is it just the number of active users? Is it the traffic that goes up? or is there other metrics out there, such as the quality of the experience? Not just MPS, but there's a lot of other metrics that a product manager, I think, should handle and use, on a monthly basis as part of their product KPIs that I think are related to the UX and the design. I think there's a bright future there for sure.
It's been a pleasure to share this time with you and learn from you, Alfonso. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I just feel it's fantastic to be here with you. We're two Spaniards in Silicon Valley pushing for product success. And so I'm honored and very happy to have participated, and I wish you the best.